In the headlines, we hear more from the Department of Nationality and Passports. Restore Belize discusses new National Citizen Security Policy and Plan, and we take a look at the work of the Medical Examiner's Office in our Forensic series. These stories and more in this week's edition of Belize Now. Thanks for joining us on this Friday, February 21st, 2020. I am Erin Guzman. We recently told our viewers about the changes in the application process for passports. Several of our viewers shared their questions and comments, which we've answered in this follow-up.
Processing time. It's one of the most asked questions pertaining to the passport application process. That and what's the purpose of traveling to Belmopan to submit a passport application? Although there are operating offices in Corozal, Belize City, and Punta Gorda, the processing of passports is done only in Belmopan at the Immigration Office. Mario Arzu, Director of the Department of Nationality and Passport, explained that it's largely due to technical issues.
Initially, when this system was created in 2005, each district had a data capture system. But several things, throughout the years, inclusive of the arrangements made with the suppliers and the licensing of the system and the support management of the system, some of these have created this not having all district stations operational. The closing down of the company that we acquired this system from is also an issue, so we can't even revive those stations.
When it comes to the new ticketing system at the immigration headquarters in Belmopan, it's important to note that despite not having a quota for acceptance of applications for the day, the ticketing system cutoff time is at 3:30 p.m. from Monday to Thursday and at 3 p.m. on Fridays. The cashier opens only until 4 p.m. from Monday to Thursday and at 3:30 p.m. on Fridays. When it comes to the 24-hour expedited passport service, persons are required to call in to make an appointment to go into the office.
And simply because we produce the passports here, it wouldn't be practical for Belize City to accept their 24 hours when they come in every week to bring in. It would be beyond the time.
For persons abroad who submit their applications to the missions that provide the data capture service, the wait is long as all processing for those passports is also done in Belmopan. In regards to a recommender, the requirement remains the same for persons abroad. However, they will need to hire the service of a notary public as the recommender.
The difference with the missions out there, as it relates to the recommender, is that they would just need to find a notary public. It's the same basic requirement, but in this case, because Belizeans may not be where you are and the Belizean may not know you any at all, it is afforded for them to go to a notary public for them to complete the recommender's form.
Another concern was whether someone who is a Belizean by marriage or a CARICOM national is allowed to be a recommender. The only persons that are allowed to be a recommender is a Belizean national who is 18 years or older, meaning you were born in Belize or acquired citizenship through descent. This means that the person's parents were Belizeans at his or her time of birth, or if they were born before September 1981, their parents or grandparents must have had Belizean nationality at their time of birth. A recommender should know the applicant for at least 1 year. As it relates to applications for minors, only one parent needs to complete the application, either mother, father, or legal guardian. The parent or legal guardian is the applicant of the passport for a child, and therefore that parent would be unable to recommend because they would be recommending themselves. In the case where the child is 16 years or older, a parent can be the recommender. Persons are encouraged to visit any of the immigration offices for further inquiries. For Belize Now, I'm Miriam Longsworth.
We'll have more stories after the break. Stay with us.
The Belize Billing Act was amended in 2017 to clarify and strengthen the relationship between the Central Billing Authority, the councils, and the municipal billing authorities. The implementation of the provisions of the reformed Belize Building Act has led to the establishment of a building unit in each municipality. This structure has been put in place to facilitate and make efficient the permitting process for building construction, demolition, and occupancy within each municipality. All 9 municipalities have an established and certified building unit, which is the sole building authority at the municipal level. Prospective applicants in the different municipalities who wish to apply shall submit their application to the building unit within their respective towns or cities. This message is brought to you by the Building Sector Reform Project at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, the Central Billing Authority, the Ministry of Local Government, and the Economic Development Council.
Restore Belize hosted a media dialogue on February 18th, which focused on a draft National Citizen Security Policy and Plan 2020 to 2025. The purpose of the policy and plan is to look at ways to address the root causes of crime and violence in Belize. Director of Restore Belize, Mary Vasquez, told us more.
The plan actually is a blueprint, a map, it's a road map for how we can take what we are doing and increase the impact of it. And so we have two pathways in the plan. The first pathway is what programs are the most essential for achieving citizen security. And it is based on an understanding of what we talk about when we talk about citizen security, which is we're talking about everything that contributes from birth to the nurturing and molding of law-abiding and productive citizens. So we focus on all those programs from childhood through to adulthood, but then we also focus on pathway 2, which is about behavior. And it's about behavior in decision making, it's about behavior in how we govern, it's about behavior in how we provide services as duty bearers, as decision makers, as resource managers. So those 2 elements are the basic pathways on this roadmap to improving citizen security. Some of the things in the plan are things we already know, and so we can attest to the fact that those are correct solution in terms of the types of services we need to provide. So what is different then is that we're looking at that, but we're looking at that in how can we improve how we deliver those services? How can we improve the impact of the investments that we make?
Restore Belize commented that the policy and plan were drafted in 2019 through extensive consultations with a wide range of stakeholders from both the public and private sectors. On February 19, 2020, the National Emergency Management Organization, UNICEF, local government, researchers, and key panelists met to discuss the National Protocol for the Integrated Protection of Children and Adolescents in Emergency and Disaster Situations. We learned about how Belize is leading the way in the Caribbean to include marginalized groups such as children, women, and people with disabilities in disaster management planning to better decrease the harm and trauma they face during emergency situations.
Today's meeting is the launch of the national protocol that's just been developed by NEMO, the Ministry of Labour and Local Government, with support from UNICEF and other partners on protection of children in emergencies. And UNICEF has supported this process because our partners, together with our partners, we recognized that there was a gap in our emergency preparedness and response processes in terms of consideration of children, and that meant that our response was not adequately catering for and building the capacity for us to cater to the needs of children. The protocol that is being launched today spells out specifically how we can improve integrated support to make sure that we are prepared to respond to the particular needs and threats to children in the face of disaster, but also how we can coordinate more effectively to respond during a disaster and following a disaster so that children are resilient, but also so that they're able to come out of these disaster situations better able to rebound and to recover and to achieve their full potential. So this protocol really spells out what each of these different actors needs to know in terms of what the key threats are for children in the face of emergencies, and it also spells out what we can do to prepare and to minimize the risk for negative impacts on children of a disaster, but also to ensure that we can most effectively support children to come out of these experiences safer and strong, healthy, protected, so that they continue to thrive following a disaster.
In 2018, UNICEF Belize envisioned working along with our government partners, with our humanitarian actors and other key stakeholders in disaster risk reduction to look at how we could infuse the protection of children and adolescents using a multi-sectoral approach. And so today we're here to launch a set of guidance documents. And this is a national protocol that will offer integrated protection to children and adolescents during emergency and disaster situations. So essentially, we've conducted field work through consultations in our country with adults as well as with children, and we have conducted field work in the Caribbean. What is important to share is that our Belize team has led a pioneering research to add another layer of emergency preparedness, but this time focusing on how to include children and adolescents.
My role in the protocol was to serve as a voice for all adolescents in Belize, advocate for all the youths. I could give you an example. To prepare for the questions, I asked and I surveyed adolescents at my school and in my class about what affects them the most and stuff like that. And I gathered all their voices and condensed it into one, and I spoke my mind.
The protocol launch was the first step towards giving children and adolescents in Belize a seat at the table to voice their needs that must be considered during the planning stages for emergency and disaster situations and during those critical times as well. On Tuesday, February 18th, Cabinet, in a press release, announced new appointments following its meeting. These included the appointment of Attorney General Senator Honorable Michael Perry as the substantive Minister of National Security to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of the Honorable John Saldivar as the Minister of National Security. The Minister of State for the Ministry of National Security, the Honorable Elodio Aragon Jr., will be responsible for the supervision of the ministry's day-to-day management. There was also the appointment of Honorable Omar Figueroa as Substantive Minister of Fisheries, Forestry, the Environment and Sustainable Development. The Honorable Godwin Hulse is to continue as the Substantive Minister of Agriculture and Immigration. Dr. Honorable Omar Figueroa was yesterday sworn in by the Governor-General, His Excellency Sir Colville Young, as the Minister for Fisheries, Forestry, the Environment and Sustainable Development. Up until his newest appointment, Honorable Figueroa was serving as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Forestry, the Environment and Sustainable Development. Stay tuned for more stories after the break.
Construction of the Airport Link Road is near completion and promises exciting benefits to the country. The works feature 5 miles of climate-resilient road, construction of a world-class high-rise bridge over the Belize River, and 2 three-leg roundabouts. This airport link road will create new, convenient access to the airport from the George Price Highway, saving commuters time and money. Additional benefits of the new road includes a reliable and prompt detour in the event of a disaster on or near the Hullover Bridge, creation of access to thousands of acres of land that can be used for housing, agriculture, or commercial purposes, and alleviation of some of the traffic congestions in the outskirts of Belize City. The road is being built by Cisco Construction, one of the leading road developers in the Caribbean. More for Belizeans, more for Belize. The government of Belize, moving Belize forward.
Last week, our viewers saw part 1 of our documentary on the National Forensic Science Service, which focused on the Scenes of Crime Unit. This week, we take a look at the work of the Medical Examiner's Office.
Countrywide, the National Forensic Science Service has 60 personnel. The Medical Examiner's Office is the smallest of the 3 units of the department. This unit was officially established in May 2014, and its mission is the same as the entire forensic department: to assist in the administration of justice by providing scientific-based evidence, in the case of this unit, through autopsy findings.
Our staff here at the Belize Medical Examiner's Office consists of 5 individuals, myself as the Assistant Director and also an anatomic pathologist. We have 2 posts of medical examiners. One is a contracted officer, and then we have one under the public service. And we have a coroner's assistant, which is also the pathology assistant. And then we have an eviscerator. He's also a scenes of crime technician.
I'm responsible for coordinating all the medical legal autopsies in the country. I liaise with the police and the family members to make arrangements and to make arrangements for all the logistics for the autopsies conducted here in Belize. After the autopsy is conducted, I would sit and answer their questions and tell them and explain to them the cause of death and answer their questions as much as possible in relation to the cause of death.
A forensic pathologist is a medical examiner who performs a post-mortem for an investigation in a criminal or civil case. However, currently there isn't a forensic pathologist in the country. Dr. Ken explained the difference between his work as an anatomic pathologist and the work of a forensic pathologist.
Anatomic pathologist specialist studies diseases, the causes, the mechanisms of how diseases occur or injuries occur as well. Forensic pathology is a subspecialization within anatomic pathology. For someone to become a forensic pathologist, they need to do anatomic pathology, either anatomic pathology, general pathology, or clinical pathology. In my case, I'm an anatomic pathologist, so all I need is a fellowship in forensic medicine to become a forensic pathologist.
The role of this unit is to support police investigations. The Medical Examiner's Office is responsible for death investigations that are of public interest.
We perform the medical legal autopsies to determine cause of death, and depending on the circumstances surrounding death, the manner of death, in this case classified as natural, suicide, accidents, homicides, and undetermined. The reportable deaths investigated by the Belize Medical Examiner's Office are for example, work-related deaths. In the workplace, something happens and you die. Those are investigated, or deaths are a person in police custody, for example, and sudden unexpected deaths, either in babies, infants, adolescents, adults. and suspected drownings, or apparent drowning as well, and unidentified individuals, and foreign nationals, and intoxication, either for alcohol, drugs, poisons, and body parts. They're numerous.
Death investigations require a multidisciplinary team approach. For this reason, the medical examiner's office maintains a good working relationship with its partners.
We cannot work without the assistance of a scenes of crime technician, as well as the police department, and the forensic laboratory. It's a combination of all four units and departments as well for the investigation, or proper investigation of the death. This is not only about us, the medical examiner's office. It's about the combination of other disciplines, either in the forensic laboratory, the scenes of crime, and also of the police department.
So how do the functions of this office support the functions of its partners?
At the moment we have a shallow grave not far from here, in which the police investigator have been called to a scene, right? And they're the ones collecting data, doing the interviews, and they're one of the first responders to the scene. So being notified of such event, they call on to the scenes of crime. The scenes of crime technician goes to the scene, and first they have to look for evidence, take photographic documentation of the scene, where is it located, etc. Then after doing so, they coordinate with the medical examiner's office, in this case with the forensic coordinator that we mentioned, the same, and pathology assistant. He would go to the scene and determine whether we have a body there. Is it human? Is it of animal? Right? So he will be doing his investigation in turn. And again, when that is done, when the body is retrieved from the shallow grave, then the body is taken to the morgue, where the medical examiner, in this case, I would go and then perform the autopsy on the body to determine the cause of death.
Of important note is that the post-mortem examinations done by the medical examiner's office are not the same as the clinical examinations done by the Ministry of Health. Forensic autopsies are done for criminal matters. Although the medical examiners might be able to determine the cause of death, there are times that bodies are in a decomposing state and identification is difficult. When this happens, DNA testing is required.
In this case, we rely on DNA testing, and in country we don't have that facility or testing method, so we outsource these samples, and these would take more than 6 months to obtain results.
The outsourcing of DNA testing at the moment is limited by the fact that we are required to hand deliver exhibits to whichever reference laboratory we use. If we were to move towards a system where, as they have in other jurisdictions, those items can be sent via secure courier services, for instance, the main ones, FedEx and DHL, it would minimize the turnaround time, it would minimize the cost on our end, per diem, travel, accommodation. It would minimize some of the risks associated with carrying those items in checked luggage as compared to using an established courier service.
The Ministry of Health is an important partner to this unit. The medical examiners have been using the morgues at the different hospitals in the country to conduct autopsies and to store bodies. This makes infrastructure a priority area for this unit, particularly the need to have a centralized morgue.
In the ideal world, we'll have our own morgue, a forensic morgue for the department, that we can absolutely ensure the the storage of bodies or of cases or potential evidentiary material under conditions that we stipulate, rather than at the conditions or the criteria of the owner of the morgue.
In 2018, the Medical Examiner's Office conducted a total of 446 post-mortem examinations countrywide. The majority of these were done at the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital morgue, with the remainder being done at the various Ministry of Health morgues across the country and the morgue at the Central American Health Sciences University on the Burrell Boom Road. The vast majority of the cases handled by the Medical Examiner's Office are those that arise from sudden deaths, gunshot wounds, or road traffic accidents. Deaths due to blunt force trauma injury, sharp force injury, hanging, or drowning also made up a considerable portion of the cases handled by the unit. Another priority area is to build the competency of the staff as forensic practitioners, not only for the Medical Examiner's Office, but the entire forensic department.
Our staff that sign off on reports that certify findings, whether cause and manner of death or process a crime scene, and have produced a report that will be used by investigators or prosecutors, or produce reports of analysis on firearms or blood samples or seized drugs or toxicology. The staff have to be able and prepared to be called to court to testify. Before they even are able to submit their reports or tender the reports into evidence, they have to be accepted first as an expert witness. And so that we have to be able to demonstrate that they've gone through certain trainings, that they have certain systems in place that allow them to be able to do their work under certain minimum standards, to be able to ensure or to prove or to demonstrate that they work independently and objectively and to produce quality work, and also that there's proper oversight or accountability so that it is not biased to any one side, or, like I said, the findings are based on reliable scientific principles.
Dr. Blanco has recently completed his master's degree in forensic anthropology, which, in a nutshell, is the study of the human skeleton applying forensic science. This means that the office can now offer additional services.
We can offer services now as a qualified forensic anthropologist, and we can be able to examine human remains and determine more or less the time interval that they're dead, the sex, the age, and the probable cause of death. As forensic anthropology progresses, our goal is to bring closure to a lot of the families that have missing or unidentified persons. What we plan to do is, in the near future, is to create a complete biological profile of all the skeletal remains we have found, that we have in our possession, and to get the family members to come in and voluntarily give their DNA samples so we can match them and probably find closure to their missing persons.
While the NFSS recognizes all their areas for growth, the department continues to make the most of their resources in serving the justice system and Belize.
And that's it for this edition of Belize Now. If you want to provide feedback or send in your comments, please feel free to email us at info@pressoffice.gov.bz or visit our Facebook page and let us know what you think. We look forward to hearing from you. From all of us here, have a great week. Until next time.